My beloved brought back a woman, saying she would be his wife. I asked him, what about me? He glanced at me and said indifferently, you are the princess. High and mighty. Yes. I am the princess. High and mighty. What kind of man could I not have? Later, I held my handsome man in my arms. Yet he knelt at my feet begging for my affection. I laughed and told him, get lost. Far away. My name is Yaya, the sole princess of Dongnan, cherished and protected by my father, mother, and brothers. Xiangqianan is Dongnan's war god and general, and my betrothed. Had the Xiongnu not invaded our borders half a year ago, Xiangqianan and I would have been married long ago. Hearing of Xiangqianan's triumphant return today, I prepared ginseng chicken soup for him in the small kitchen. Carrying the pot, I hurried excitedly to his residence. Whenever he returned from campaigns, I would prepare chicken soup for him. Each time, he drank it with delight, and I watched him with joy. But this time, the moment I entered his residence, I overheard his maids discussing that he had brought back a woman. I rushed over to see, and sure enough, she was petite and delicate, with an innocent, harmless face, especially those large, watery eyes. When she looked at me, they were filled with terror, and her body trembled uncontrollably, like a frightened little rabbit. It was truly heartbreaking to see. Fearing she might be startled again, I approached softly and asked in a gentle voice, what is your name? Her eyes darted away, unable to meet mine. Her voice trembled, laced with tears. Lu Xiangru. Where are you from? Lu Xiangru shook her head. How old are you? Lu Xiangru shook her head. Where are your family? Lu Xiangru shook her head again. Seeing she had no family, I felt truly sorry for her and shared a bowl of chicken soup with her. Here, this bowl of soup is for you. But before her hand even touched the rim of the bowl, she cried out, it's so hot. Then, with one swift slap, she knocked the bowl from my hand, spilling the entire contents of chicken soup all over my clothes. I stared in shock at Lu Xiangru, trembling like a frightened rabbit. My personal maid, Tower, lunged forward in a single bound, her hand already raised to strike Lu Xiangru. I snapped sharply. Tower, step back. Princess. Tower's eyes were filled with heartache and resentment as she looked at me. I grew up in the palace, what kind of scheming and deceit haven't I seen? Yet I couldn't help but admire Lu Xiangru. Her acting was truly masterful. Had I not caught that flash of smugness in her eyes when she lowered her head, I might have been fooled. I believe if Tower had struck her then, we both would have fallen into her trap. A cold laugh echoed in my heart. I'd see what tricks she had up her sleeve. I demanded, what do you mean by this, young lady? Lu Xiangru maintained her pitiful demeanor, though her eyes now held a hint of contempt and disdain. She rose and approached me, leaning close to whisper in my ear, Princess indeed. In the end, you'll still be defeated by me. Before I could react, she lifted my hand and slapped her own face. Then, with a thud, she knelt on the ground, sobbing, Princess, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to spill the soup on you. It was just so hot, and I lost my grip for a moment. Please forgive me, Princess. Just then, footsteps sounded behind me. I knew it was Xiangqianan arriving, and I understood Lu Xiangru's purpose in doing this. But Xiangqianan was a man of extraordinary intelligence, tens of thousands of times sharper than me. I believed he would see through this and restore justice to me. Yet I never imagined he would, without even asking, pin all the blame squarely on me. He called me arrogant and overbearing, unreasonable and unreasonable, brutal and unreasonable, and said I was bullying others by taking advantage of my position. He even dug up many old stories about me. The more I listened, the colder my heart grew. I saw that Xiang Chang was the one bullying others with impunity, relying on my affection for him. Knowing I wouldn't harm him, he brazenly sided with other women to torment me, humiliate me, and reduce me to worthlessness. I pointed at Lu Xiangru on the ground and demanded, "Who is she?" Xiang Chang's face remained cold as he replied, "She will be my wife." My breath caught. My heart felt as if it had been sliced open, gritting my teeth against the pain. I pressed him. "And me?" He glanced at me indifferently. "You are the exalted princess." Yes. I was the exalted princess. Xiang Chang'an had to remind me of that. I tilted my head back, forcing back the tears threatening to spill over. I do care for him, Xiang Chang'an, but I'm not a fool. Since Xiang Chang'an calls me a princess and labels me arrogant and unreasonable, then I'll be exactly as he says. I gave Tower a look. She understood immediately, stepped forward, and shouted, "Guards! Drag this insolent woman out and give her 30 strokes of the cane." At Tower's command, a dozen black-clad figures sprang from every corner. Not just the others in the room, but even I was startled. Staring blankly at them, I wondered, when did my father the emperor arrange for so many guards? By the time I regained my senses, I found every eye in the room fixed on me. Lu Xiangru was pinned to the floor by 2 guards, unable to move. Xiang Chang'an's brow was furrowed with fury as he gritted out, "Princess, what is the meaning of this?" I cast a dismissive glance at Xiang Chang'an. She had no manners, daring to address me as I in my presence, then spilling the chicken soup I'd painstakingly simmered all over me. The soup was too hot. Rower simply lost her grip. Rower. Indeed. How affectionate. I've been by Xiang Chang'an's side since I was 10, 6 years now. I may be arrogant and domineering, but have I ever harmed anyone? Hurt anyone? He now chooses to believe Lu Xiangru, whom he's known barely a moment, over me, his companion of 6 years. My expression darkened as I coldly retorted, "So the general still believes this palace is at fault? Must I cool it down myself and feed her sip by sip?" Since our first meeting, I'd never addressed Xiang Chang'an as this palace. It felt too distant. Perhaps my voice was too icy, my tone too aloof. Maybe this shift made him uneasy. Xiang Chang'an frowned at me, taking a long moment before speaking. "When did the princess become so unreasonable?" I scoffed. "Didn't you say I've always been unreasonable? So it's not that I've become unreasonable, it's that you've grown dull, unable to see through such petty tricks." Xiang Chang'an's face flushed alternately pale and crimson. He clenched his fists, seething but unable to speak. Ignoring his fury, I walked to the table, sat on a stool, and put on airs as I demanded, "General, would you be so kind as to pour me a bowl of soup?" Xiang Chang'an was extremely reluctant, but I was maintaining my superiority. Now I was the sovereign, he the subject. He had no choice but to obey. He poured the soup and presented it to me, but I held my hand out for a long time, only gazing at him with mocking eyes. I used to think Xiang Chang'an was the most handsome man in all of Dong'an. I loved his face, especially those alluring almond-shaped eyes, like enchanting demons that could steal one's soul. Every time I looked at him, my heart would flutter. But seeing him up close now, I realize I was blind. He's not even as good-looking as this masked man in black beside me. I turned to the dark-clad figure. "What is your name?" The man paused, then answered respectfully, "Your humble servant is Ying." As I chatted with Ying, I watched Xiang Chang'an's expression. Never before had Xiang Chang'an been so blatantly ignored. Rage boiled within him, turning his face ashen. Just as he was about to slam the bowl down in fury, I asked, "General, is it too hot?" Xiang Chang'an didn't respond. His iron-gray face instantly turned deathly pale as he stared at the soup bowl in his hands. Lost in thought. I let out a cold laugh and reached out to take the bowl from him. Snapping back to attention, he hurriedly handed it over. But before his fingers even touched the rim, I dramatically yelped. "Ah! It's scalding!" Mimicking Lu Xiangro's manner, I flicked the bowl from Xiang Chang'en's hand. But I used too much force, and the entire bowl of soup splashed onto his face. Seeing his disheveled state, I was utterly satisfied. Xiang Chang stared at me wide-eyed. "You." I rose, straightening my clothes, and said coolly, "Though you are a military commander, every courtier praises your intelligence and wisdom. You understand the classics and recognize their value. A man as clever as you should know the truth without needing this palace to spell it out." I glanced at Lu Xianru, pinned to the floor and unable to move, and added, "If this palace truly wished to harm her, as you said, this palace is arrogant and tyrannical. Given this palace's tyrannical nature, do you think this palace would settle for something so simple? At the very least, there must be bloodshed. That would be truly satisfying, wouldn't it?" Watching Xiang Chang's face grow paler by the second, I felt a surge of satisfaction. I turned to Tower, who shouted, "Drag her out immediately." Two black-clad men seized Lu Xiangro's arms, one on each side, and began dragging her out. Seeing my resolve, Lu Xiangru finally showed fear. Her face went pale. Her body trembled. Yet she did not beg for mercy. This was exactly what I expected. She struggled desperately to break free, but her efforts were futile. With tear-filled eyes, she turned to Xiang Chang'en for help. Her pitiful, helpless expression would have moved even a woman to pity, let alone Xiang Chang'en, a man. Just as Lu Xiangru was about to be dragged out, Xiang Chang'en reluctantly knelt down, pleading with the princess to spare Rower. Though nominally begging for Lu Xiangro's mercy, his tone held no supplication, more like a command. But I paid it little mind. Since he showed no intention of pleading, I had no intention of releasing her. I said, "What if this palace refuses? What can the general do about it?" In the past, no matter how much Xiang Chang'en had displeased me, a mere hint of weakness from him would have made me reach for the stars for him. But this time was different. Not only did I refuse his request, I met him with verbal provocation. When had I ever spoken to him like this? He stared at me in disbelief. After a long moment, seeing no sign of my yielding, he sighed helplessly and said, "Then let this servant take the punishment for Rower. This is my betrothed. After half a year apart, he returns only to humiliate me for another woman. Speak to her with such intimacy, and now even offer to take her punishment. How times have changed, the deep affection of the past has become a colossal joke." I nodded. Since Miss Lu is the general's future wife, and considering his deep affection, I shall grant his request. However, I spared her only 30 lashes out of pity for her delicate feminine constitution. Now that the general wishes to take her punishment, he must endure 100 lashes to demonstrate sincerity. Wouldn't you agree, General? I smiled as I met Xiang Chang'en's stunned gaze. Seeing his face turn almost ashen, I knew he had been gambling that I would show mercy. Alas, he had gambled wrong. If I released them today, the scandal would tarnish the emperor and empress's reputation. I may care for him, but that doesn't mean I have no principles. I may be naive, but I'm not foolish. Since he so desperately wants to take Lu Xiangro's punishment, I'll let him suffer to his heart's content. I gave Xiang Chang'en no chance to back down. "Guards," I commanded, "take the general away to receive his punishment." With that, I turned and walked out with Tower. As I passed Lu Xiangru, her words echoed in my mind. "So what if you're a princess? You'll still end up defeated by me. She dared to provoke me. Who gave her the audacity? Who gave her the confidence? But to speak so boldly before me, I respect her for her guts. If she wanted to play, I'd gladly oblige. I whispered softly into Lu Xiangro's ear, Miss Lu, I look forward to seeing what you have to offer. The lake blue robe I wore when meeting Xiang Chang'an was a gift he'd given me half a year prior. He'd said he hoped I'd wear it when he returned. I waited for him day and night for half a year. When he finally returned, I wore the robe and went to meet him full of joy. Little did I expect it would end like this. Back in the palace, I cut the robe from my body and lay on the bed, weeping until my heart ached. Tower stood helplessly by the bedside, wanting to comfort me but not knowing how. I still remember when I was 10, sneaking out of the palace with Tower and encountering Xiang Chang'an, the hero who rescued the damsel in distress. His gentle smile felt like a spring breeze, just like the scenes in those storybooks, so beautiful it made my heart tremble. Though he wasn't rescuing me, I was still captivated, utterly enchanted. But by the time I came to my senses, he was already gone, leaving me heartbroken for a long time. Later, when I encountered him again in the palace, I inquired and learned he was none other than Xiang Chang'an, the legendary war god general. From that moment on, I often followed Xiang Chang'an around. Upon learning he favored gentle, virtuous, and well-educated women, I began studying music, chess, calligraphy, painting, poetry, and literature, striving to become the kind of woman he would admire. Now, I have been by Xiang Chang'an's side for 6 full years. 6 years ago, I was free-spirited and unrestrained, indulging in carefree fun. 6 years later, I'm bound by constraints, constantly monitoring my every move, fearing I might disgust Xiang Chang'an. It's as if I'm trapped in a cage, utterly deprived of freedom. It's truly stifling and unbearable. But who can blame me for loving Xiang Chang'an? No matter how suffocating or painful it is, I accept it. What I never could have imagined was that he would treat me this way for Lu Xianru. They encountered Lu Xianru on their journey back. Seeing her pitiful state, they brought her along. But it puzzled me. According to them, they'd found Lu Xianru less than 10 days ago. And in those 10 days, Xiang Chang'an had barely spent any time with her. How could he suddenly be so deeply in love with her? I couldn't make sense of it. But even if I couldn't understand, the situation was what it was. Feelings like these couldn't be forced. Since Xiang Chang'an didn't want me, I didn't want him either. Xiang Chang'an was right. Because I was the child my parents had longed for. They showered me with boundless affection. This led me to become somewhat arrogant and overbearing, spoiled by their indulgence. But I only ever bullied those wealthy or official offspring who abused their power and committed every conceivable evil. I never harmed the innocent. After 6 years of knowing Xiang Chang'an, not only does he fail to understand me, but he uses this incident to slander me with vicious words, making me seem utterly worthless. Hearts are made of flesh. Yet Xiang Chang'an has none. When have I ever endured such injustice? All my sorrow surged up at once, and tears streamed down my face uncontrollably. But Taoru misunderstood my meaning. She thought I was crying because I couldn't let go of Xiang Chang'an. Her eyes red. She knelt by the bedside. Princess, I'll go kill that wretch right now and take the general back. Seeing Taoru's earnest expression, I forced a smile through my tears. You silly girl. What nonsense are you talking? Your princess has suffered such a terrible humiliation and injustice, isn't it only natural to cry? Tower froze, then asked uncertainly, so the princess wasn't crying because she couldn't let go of the general? I wiped my tears and retorted impatiently. I'm not that kind of person who can't let go. After what he did to me, if I still liked him, I'd be an idiot. Besides, Anything worth stealing isn't worth keeping anyway. I don't want him. Xiang Chang'an, the prospective prince consort, had won a splendid victory. Father Emperor was overjoyed and held the grandest victory banquet in history. But the celebrations seemed to backfire. In a fit of rage, the emperor ordered Xiang Chang'an to receive 20 lashes, all because he wanted to break off our engagement. When I first told the emperor I loved Xiang Chang'an and wished to marry him, though he doted on me, he never forced anyone. Before granting the marriage, the emperor privately asked Xiang Chang'an's consent. At that time, Xiang Chang'an had agreed, so the emperor bestowed the betrothal. Now he dares to break off our engagement for some unknown woman. How much my father cherishes me. How fiercely he protects his favorites, the entire Dong'an knows it. And Xiang Chang'an brought up the annulment at the very banquet my father held in his honor. In front of so many people. Not only has he damaged my reputation, he's disgraced my father and openly challenged the imperial authority. Were it not for His Majesty sparing him punishment due to his past merits, beheading him would have been justified. I once believed Xiang Chang's intelligence lived up to his reputation, but now he appears utterly foolish. The annulment concluded with His Majesty punishing Xiang Chang with a cane, after which the matter was never mentioned again, simply swept under the rug. Enraged by the annulment, His Majesty decreed that no one was to bring Lu Xianru into the palace. Unable to enter, she devised every possible scheme to send messengers bearing her messages, pleading for me to leave the palace and meet her. I knew exactly why she sought me out. With His Majesty refusing to relent on the annulment, she had no choice but to turn to me. A cold laugh rose in my heart. When she once declared me her defeated foe, I'd thought her formidable. Now she couldn't even enter the palace. How foolish of me to have held such high hopes for her. Truly tedious. Xiang Chang'an's heart wasn't with me. No matter how much I liked him, I'd never marry him. But I wasn't in a hurry to call off the engagement. I wanted to see what tricks Lu Xianru would pull to make me do it. But instead of Lu Xianru, it was Xiang Chang'an who arrived. That day, after paying my respects to the emperor and empress, I stepped out and immediately spotted Xiang Chang'an standing beneath a tree nearby. Truthfully, Xiang Chang'an was a pitiable figure himself. His mother died in childbirth, and his father, the general, went to war when he was 13 and never returned. From such a young age, he shouldered the entire burden of the general's household. His journey had been truly arduous. Whenever father spoke of his background, I'd weep myself to sleep, waking the next morning with puffy eyes and a hoarse voice, yet I'd still insist on simmering chicken soup for him, desperate to offer warmth. Looking back, it seems rather ridiculous. I knew Xiang Chang'an had come for me, but I pretended not to notice, walking straight ahead. Yet after just a few steps, he suddenly rushed forward and seized my wrist. I halted, my delicate brows furrowing. When did General Xiang Chang become so lacking in manners? Noticing his faux pas, Xiang Chang immediately released me, bowed deeply, and drew a letter from his robe. This is something Rower entrusted me to deliver to your highness. I glanced at the letter in Xiang Chang'an's hand and said expressionlessly, I have no desire to see it. Xiang Chang'an froze for a moment. This. Then he added, Princess, I have something to say. I gave him no face whatsoever, replying impatiently, I have no desire to hear it. That's just how I am. When I love someone, I'll pour out my heart and soul for them, yielding to their every wish, doing whatever makes them happy. But now that I no longer care for him, I couldn't care less about his happiness. I'll do whatever makes me happy. Xiang Chang'an probably hadn't expected me to speak so bluntly. He stood there momentarily stunned. I didn't want to get entangled with him any longer. Taking Tower with me, I left without looking back. Xiang Chang'an, finally coming to his senses, kept calling after me. At first, He offered words of apology. But by the end, he was pleading for me to grant him and Lu Xiangru their wish. I knew it would come to this. But why should I grant them their wish? Am I that kind of person? His nagging grew unbearable. So I called for the black-clad guards to drag him away. After lunch, Tower told me that after Xiang Chang'an failed to persuade me, he went to beg the emperor for approval, kneeling outside the palace hall for a full 3 hours. My father, who rarely resorts to force, unexpectedly ordered Xiang Chang'an to receive 20 lashes and roared at him to get lost. I don't know how Xiang Chang'an reacted then, but the servants were nearly scared out of their wits. Hearing this, I couldn't help but laugh. I suspect Xiang Chang'an and Lu Xiangru are destined to clash. Otherwise, why would he, who'd lived 26 years without a single setback, suffer repeated injuries the moment she appeared? But I couldn't care less about him. My only concern now was my father. Though robust, his health couldn't withstand daily fury. This pace would break even the strongest frame, especially with his constant state affairs. After pondering, I slipped into the small kitchen to simmer my favorite ginseng chicken soup. When I carried the soup to my father, as luck would have it, Xiang Chang'an was there too, along with Wei Yanxi, son of Grand Tutor Wei. My soup was only enough for 2 people. I'd intended to keep the other bowl for myself. After much deliberation, I gave the second bowl to Wei Yanxi. Wei Yanxi isn't just the son of Grand Tutor Wei, he's also Deputy General Wei in the court, a rare talent. Truthfully, I never cared much for Wei Yanxi. During my visits to the general's residence to see Xiang Chang'an, I often encountered him. I'd exchanged greetings a few times, but he always gave me the cold shoulder. Eventually, I stopped bothering. But right now, I dislike Xiang Chang'an even more than Wei Yanxi. That's why I gave the soup to Wei Yanxi. As for Xiang Chang'an, well, we'll see. Father Emperor sipped the chicken soup with delight. Wei Yanxi held his bowl thoughtfully, while Xiang Chang'an, completely ignored by me, looked grim. His brow furrowed. His gaze toward me held a hint of resentment. I pretended not to notice, urging only Wei Yanxi to drink his soup quickly. Before, my heart was wholly devoted to Xiang Chang'an, convinced he was the most handsome man in the world, unmatched by anyone. But today, upon closer inspection, Wei Yanxi was clearly more handsome than Xiang Chang'an, not just a little, but 1,000, 10,000 times more. Under my gaze, Wei Yanxi finished the bowl of soup. I asked with some anticipation, "Well, how was it?" He nodded. "It's delicious." But, seeing him hesitate, I asked curiously, "But what?" "Your Highness, I dare not speak, lest I anger you." "Speak freely, Deputy General Wei. I pardon you." Wei Yanxi paused. "The chicken soup Your Highness prepared is indeed delicious, but the cook at my residence makes it even better." I froze. Wei Yanxi was the first person to suggest my chicken soup wasn't the best. Though slightly displeased, I was more intrigued. Just how delicious was the soup from the Wei household's cook that he dared say such a thing? I grabbed Wei Yanxi's hand, my voice tinged with excitement. "Deputy General Wei, might this princess visit your residence to taste your cook's chicken soup? I've adored chicken soup since childhood. To me, it's the most exquisite flavor in existence, nothing compares." Now that I'd encountered soup surpassing my own, how could I not be thrilled? Yet it seemed only my father understood my excitement. Xiang Chang'an stared intently at Wei Yanxi and me, covering his mouth with his hand as he coughed softly. I knew he was doing this to get my attention, but I simply refused to give him the satisfaction. Wei Yanxi kept his head bowed, silent. I thought he might be unwilling, and felt a pang of disappointment. But then I noticed his ears flushed a deep crimson, and it dawned on me, he was blushing. A 24-year-old man, still blushing like that? It was rather peculiar. But it made sense. After all, the Wei family enforced strict discipline, with countless household rules. Since his great-grandfather's generation, each man was permitted only one wife. By now, Wei Yanxi probably hadn't even held another girl's hand. Given that I'd taken advantage of him, it was already generous of him not to yank my hand away and call me a scoundrel. I immediately let go, gave an awkward smile, and timidly asked, "Deputy Commander Wei, is it okay?" After a long moment, Wei Yanxi finally nodded. With Wei Yanxi's approval secured, I turned my pleading gaze toward Father Emperor. Father knew my obsession with chicken soup, and he also knew that if he refused to let me leave the palace, I'd find a way out anyway. My recent obedience was only to spare him the worry of damaging his health. So, Father sighed helplessly and agreed. I flashed him a sweet smile and cooed, "I knew you'd be the best, Father." On the way back, I was overjoyed, already envisioning the outfit I'd wear to the Wei residence for chicken soup. But this happiness vanished abruptly with Xiang Chang'en's sudden appearance. When did the princess and Wei Yanxi become so close? I glanced back to see Xiang Chang'en not far away, his eyes filled with anger and resentment. I chuckled softly. "Must I report to you whom I choose to be friendly with?" Xiang Chang'en stepped forward, seizing my wrist. "Your Highness, I apologize, but you needn't degrade yourself thus." His words made me laugh bitterly. That self-aggrandizing, others belittling tone was truly nauseating. I flung his hand away, wiping the spot he'd touched with a handkerchief in disgust. My tone was cool. Does General Xiang consider himself superior? That was not my meaning. Then what did you mean? I merely wish not to see the princess degrade herself for my sake. I smiled. So General Xiang believes Deputy General Wei falls short of you. Xiang Chang'en remained silent. But I knew that was precisely his meaning. It seems I've indulged him too much in the past, allowing him to grow conceited and forget his place. This is my fault. I must take responsibility. General Xiang, you truly have the thickest skin. Don't you know what you are? You think Deputy General Wei falls short of you, but this palace finds him superior to you in every way. What? Merely holding Deputy General Wei's hand makes you feel like your possessions were stolen, leaving you displeased? A fickle, womanizing man like you still thinks you're superior? General Xiang, where does your confidence come from? Do you realize how utterly repulsive you are? This is the first time I've ever spoken so harshly to anyone. It certainly doesn't befit my status as a princess. But it feels good. So be it, the fault isn't mine. Xiang Chang'en is the one who deserves the scolding. Xiang Chang'en stared at me in disbelief. But just as he opened his mouth to speak, my brothers rushed over. Eldest brother and second brother glared fiercely at Xiang Chang'en, shielding me behind them. Third brother, with his explosive temper, lunged forward to strike him. I hurriedly stepped in. Third brother, calm down, calm down. Third brother's eyes were filled with heartache as he stared at me. He pointed at Xiang Chang'en and roared, "Have you still not forgotten the scum?" Eldest brother, second brother, and even Xiang Chang'en all turned to look at me. Don't be fooled by how my father and mother spoil me without limit. They are extremely strict with my three brothers, not allowing them to make even the slightest mistake. If that punch landed, it wouldn't be Xiang Chang'en who suffered, but my third brother. I didn't care about Xiang Chang'en, but I did care about my third brother. I hooked my arm through his and said, "Oh dear. I'm just worried your hand might hurt." Third brother. Everyone froze for a moment. Then my three brothers burst into happy laughter, while Xiang Chang'en clenched his fists, his eyes dark and unreadable. I ignored him, pulling my brothers along as we chatted and laughed our way away. The next day, I cheerfully carried chicken soup to the Wei residence. What dampened my spirits was bumping into Xiang Chang'an and Lu Xianru as they emerged from the neighboring Xiang residence. Without pausing my steps, I strode confidently into the Wei residence, not even sparing them a glance. Has the princess taken a fancy to Deputy Commander Wei? Lu Xiangrou's voice rang out behind me, sharp and sarcastic, its hoarseness slightly unnerving. Her words confirmed my suspicion. Xiang Chang'an must have told her about my chicken soup delivery. Now, appearing at the Wei residence's entrance with the soup in hand, she assumed I'd developed feelings for Wei Yanxi. While I had no romantic interest in Wei Yanxi, I saw no need to explain myself to Lu Xianru. I gave her a thorough once-over. She'd clearly been eating well lately. She'd gained quite a bit of weight. And judging by her gait, last night's battle must have been quite intense. I raised an eyebrow. What business is that of yours? When Lu Xianru caught my gaze on her, a smug smile curved her lips. She melted against Xiang Chang'an's body like a boneless doll. Her voice sweet and coy, "It's not about me. Really. But since the princess hasn't dissolved her engagement with the general yet, isn't it a bit inappropriate to come and go from the Wei residence so freely? I'm just worried it might tarnish your reputation." She even put on a look of genuine concern. I scoffed inwardly. Lu Xianru pretended to care for me, but she was actually pressuring me. Any ordinary woman would be terrified, after all. A ruined reputation meant a ruined life. But who was I? I was the most favored princess of Dong'an. Who dares gossip about me behind my back? They'd have to be out of their minds. Besides, if anyone should be afraid, shouldn't it be Xiang Chang'an and Lu Xianru? After all, one is bound by betrothal, while the other knows of that bond yet shamelessly conspires with him. I scoffed. I haven't even dissolved my betrothal to Xiang Chang'an. Yet you shamelessly roll around with him. You fear nothing when engaging in illicit relations with him. What have I to fear from a pure and proper relationship with Deputy General Wei? Lu Xianru hadn't expected me not only to show no fear but to respond with scorn. She froze for a moment before retorting. The general and I truly love each other. Once your engagement is dissolved, he will marry me immediately. I understood her implication perfectly, that their marriage was inevitable, and this was merely an early taste of marital bliss. In all my years, I'd never met someone so shameless. Truly, the world is full of all sorts of people. I believe that. I chuckled. But whether the engagement is broken is entirely up to me. As long as I don't give my consent, you two can never be together. I will never give my consent. So you can forget about being together in this lifetime. Therefore, Miss Lu, you'd best keep your tail tucked between your legs from now on. Don't dare provoke me, or you'll never marry Xiang Chang'an in this lifetime. You'll just be waiting for people to point fingers at your back. By the time I finished, Lu Xianru was dumbstruck, unable to retort. Xiang Chang'an took an imperceptible step back, his eyes flashing a hint of displeasure toward Lu Xianru, yet brimming with tenderness when he looked at me. I sneered inwardly. So displeased already? The second half of your life is still long. I paid them no further mind, turning to leave with a graceful retreat. Upon entering, Wei Yanxi was already seated at the table. Spotting me, he immediately rose and bowed. Your servant greets the princess. I smiled and nodded. Lieutenant Wei. No need for formalities. Where's the chicken soup? Wei Yanxi clapped his hands. A maid brought in a porcelain bowl. He lifted the lid and ladled a bowl of soup for me. The aroma was intensely rich. I took a sip and instantly widened my eyes. Wei Yanxi had said the cook's chicken soup was slightly better than mine. Slightly? It was leagues ahead. So delicious! I exclaimed, unable to contain my excitement. The entire bowl vanished into my stomach, and I let out a satisfied burp. This soup was truly unforgettable. If only I could have it every day. A sudden thought struck me. If I could get the recipe, I could have it daily. The idea made me chuckle. Wei Yinchi looked at me questioningly. I chuckled. Deputy General Wei. Might I have the recipe for this chicken soup? Wei Yinchi looked troubled. This servant cannot decide such matters. Princess. Please ask the cook of the mansion yourself. When the cook arrived, I smiled. Would you mind? Before I could finish, the Wei household's cook knelt with a thud, her voice trembling. Please forgive me, Princess. This chicken soup recipe was passed down by my ancestors. I swore an oath never to share it with anyone. If I did, I'd be barred from my family tomb after death. Struck by heavenly lightning, doomed to eternal damnation, never to find peace. The more she spoke, the chillier my spine grew. I only wanted a recipe for chicken soup. I wasn't trying to dig up her family's graves. I quickly cut her off. Enough. Enough. I don't want the recipe after all. You may go. The cook rose and bolted out as if fleeing. Only after she vanished did I realize something was off. I hadn't finished speaking. How did she know I wanted the chicken soup recipe? But just then, Wei Yinchi interrupted my thoughts. If your highness wishes to drink it, this servant is always at your service. I nodded, my thoughts returning. There was nothing else to be done. As compensation, I brought my own homemade chicken soup. I poured a bowl and offered it to Wei Yinchi. But just as Wei Yinchi reached to take the bowl from my hand, another hand shot in between us. I watched helplessly as the soup was snatched away. We both turned to see who it was. Xiang Chang'an. Xiang Chang'an looked at me with the same tender gaze as before. Seeing him like this only annoyed me. Why was General Xiang here at the Wei residence instead of accompanying Miss Liu? He said. Something unexpected came up. I can't go. I frowned at him, my tone displeased. Then go handle your business. Why take this soup? I haven't had chicken soup in ages. I thought. What does whether you get chicken soup have to do with me? Is the general's residence so impoverished it can't even afford a chicken? If you haven't had it in ages, have Lu Xiangru make it for you. What business is it of yours to snatch mine? Xiang Chang'an's tone was gentle. I want to drink the one you made. I stared at Xiang Chang'an in shock. Had he lost his mind? I replied coolly. This palace's chicken soup isn't for just anyone to drink. Hearing my refusal, Xiang Chang'an looked utterly disappointed. Then I'll never drink chicken soup again in my life. I rolled my eyes. Then don't ever drink it. And General Xiang, please mind your manners from now on. Don't confuse your place. This time, I'll overlook it for old time's sake. But if it happens again, don't blame me for turning my back on you. With that, I snatched the bowl from Xiang Chang'an's hands and tossed both bowl and soup aside. Xiang Chang'an froze. His lips pressed tightly together as he looked at me with hurt. I ignored him, fetched another bowl, ladled out some chicken soup, and handed it to Wei Yinchi. Wei Yinchi took the bowl, sipped, and remarked, Your cooking is truly excellent, Princess. It's exceptionally delicious. That tone. Why did it sound a bit like he was showing off? Leaning my chin on my hand at the table, I watched Wei Yinchi as he praised my chicken soup lavishly. My heart bursting with joy. Wei Yinchi had such a sweet mouth, it made me want to kiss him hard. I smiled and said, If you like it, Deputy Commander Wei, I'll make it for you every day. Wei Yinchi seemed flattered and a bit overwhelmed. Really? He asked, sounding almost incredulous. I nodded. Really? Xiang Chang'an, left standing aside, gritted his teeth as he watched Wei Yinchi and me chatting and laughing. After a while, seeing neither of us paid him any mind, he stormed off, flinging his sleeves angrily. My daily visits to the Wei residence deepened my bond with Wei Yinchi. Setting aside his earlier aloofness, he proved genuinely admirable. He shared countless amusing anecdotes and recounted their border missions. He confided that without Lu Lin's counsel to Xiang Chang'an, they wouldn't have returned so swiftly, perhaps not for another year or two. This Lu Lin was none other than Lu Xianru. She had disguised herself as a man to infiltrate the military camp, maintaining her cover so well that they never suspected her. Before that, she had been living with Xiang Chang as his military strategist. As Wei Yanqi spoke, he watched my reaction closely. I think he was worried I might be upset. I truly wasn't upset at all, but no one seemed to believe me. However, Wei Yanqi did clear up my confusion. It turned out Xiang Chang'an and Lu Xianru had been involved for half a year already. No wonder he wanted to break off our engagement the moment he returned. I suppose that's what they call love blossoming over time. In a few days, it would be Mother's 100 Flowers banquet, which also marked her birthday. Though Mother never celebrated her birthday, we still prepared gifts for her. Mother once tasted wontons from East Street and never forgot their flavor. Unable to leave the palace, she lamented that bringing them back always lost their essence. I resolved to learn this craft to bring her joy. However, while learning the craft, I encountered Lu Xianru. She claimed she could make even better wontons. I was deeply tempted, yet I knew she had ulterior motives. What do you want? I want you to break off your engagement with the general. I smiled and said, I can annul the engagement. But you must also ensure the emperor grants you a royal match. Otherwise, all your efforts will be in vain. Lu Xianru smiled confidently. I have my ways. If you agree to break the engagement, I'll teach you how to make dumplings. I nodded. All right. For 3 full days. I left early and returned late, learning dumpling making from Lu Xianru. What she taught me truly tasted better than the dumplings from the shop on East Street. I was quite satisfied. As I prepared to return to the palace, Lu Xianru said, Princess, don't forget our agreement. I replied, rest assured. My word is as good as gold. Once I've promised you something, I'll never go back on it. But you must remember your own promise, give me a surprise. Lu Xianru looked at me and nodded, her eyes brimming with confidence. After that, I devoted myself to helping Mother Empress prepare for the 100 Flowers banquet. Combined with the days spent learning dumpling making from Lu Xianru, I hadn't visited the Wei residence for chicken soup in 6 consecutive days. These days, I craved that soup so intensely I couldn't swallow a bite, and I'd grown noticeably thinner. Some even misunderstood, suggesting I'd lost weight for Chang'an's sake. Though the notion was laughable, I didn't deny it, for it served my next plan well. Mother's 100 Flowers banquet was always tedious, nothing but dancing, playing music, singing, or composing poetry. I found it utterly uninteresting and had no desire to attend. Yet I couldn't resist Mother's fervent persistence. Days before the banquet, she feared I might not come and visited my palace daily. My dear Yuer, would you accompany Mother? Yuer, will you go? Yuer, look, all the ministers and their wives have their children with them. Do you really want your mother to be all alone and pitiful? I sighed helplessly. But Father and my brothers will be with Mother, won't they? Mother clung to my arm, clinging to me like a child. Yuer, my dear Yuer, please. I'm begging you. They say the Empress must be the model of the harem. Her every action dignified and graceful, without a single flaw. Watching Mother cling to me, whining and acting like a child, utterly without decorum, I felt a wave of helplessness wash over me. Why must my mother be so different? My tone was thick with resignation. Fine. Your daughter will go, won't she? The annual 100 Flowers banquet was always like this. I didn't want to go, yet I attended every single time. On the day of the banquet, The usually tranquil palace buzzed with activity as court ministers and their families streamed toward the imperial garden. Finding the commotion tiresome, I waited until the banquet was nearly underway before heading to the garden. Along the way, I encountered a man with an odd limp. His back view seemed familiar, yet I knew nearly every court official, none of whom, to my recollection, had a limp. I asked Tower, "Who is that man ahead?" Tower looked closely. "Deputy General Wei." Her words made me frown. He seemed perfectly fine just days ago. How could he? Tower seemed to sense my thoughts and whispered in explanation, "I heard Deputy General Wei accidentally broke General Xiang's treasured jade pendant recently." In his rage, General Xiang ordered 50 lashes for Deputy General Wei. Xiang Chang'an has a precious jade pendant? How come I never knew? Watching Wei Yinchi stagger along, I couldn't help but feel a pang of sympathy. I thought about sending him some wound medicine. At the 100 Flowers banquet, laughter and merriment filled the air. Everyone seemed quite happy. But for me, it remained as tedious as ever. All present composed poems inspired by the flowers, danced, sang, and showcased their talents. I must admit, Lu Xiangru truly surprised me. Her poetry was truly brilliant, completely overshadowing the so-called first talented lady of Dong'an who couldn't hold her head up. She stole the show, ultimately winning first place and the title of Dong'an's top literary talent. Amidst the crowd's praise, Lu Xiangru grew a bit carried away, her face unable to hide her smugness. She assumed I, like everyone else, would be impressed by her. Alas, she was mistaken. The very poems she just recited were taught to me by my mother when I was 10. Now I finally understand what she meant by that phrase, "What good is being a princess?" In the end, she still becomes my defeated opponent. Because she, like my mother, had traveled here from that place called the modern world. According to my mother, the modern world was far more advanced than ours. They had airplanes soaring through the skies, automobiles racing across the land, ships navigating the waters, and trains chugging along rails, all means of transport. We only had horse-drawn carriages. They possessed cell phones and telephones for communication, while we relied on carrier pigeons. They also have countless foods we've never seen, like hot pot, spicy boiled skewers, rice noodles, and snail noodles. I've been fortunate enough to taste the first 3 when Mother made them. But I've never tried snail noodles. Mother says she can't make them. Ever since I can remember, Mother has spoken of snail noodles. I dream of them at night. And even when sick with fever, I cry out for them. This has made me intensely curious. What earthly delicacy could be so unforgettable to Mother? Could it possibly surpass the ginseng chicken soup from the Wei household? I doubt it. The main point is, modern society is far more open-minded than ours. So Lu Xiangru assumed that as someone from the modern era, she could easily outshine me. Trapped in this feudal system, I thought Lu Xiangru was going to give me some earth-shattering surprise. This? Lu Xiangru thought a few lines of poetry would let her run rampant in Dong'an? How utterly absurd and laughable. In our world, power reigns supreme. Without it, you're nothing. There's a secret known only to my father the emperor, my mother the empress, and me. Once, a palace maid served in my quarters. Her mannerisms and speech mirrored Lu Xiangru's to a T. Not only did she scheme to climb into my father's imperial bedchamber, but she also used me as a stepping stone, plotting to usurp my mother's position as empress. The most laughable part was her audacious claim to change the world, preaching some nonsense about equality for all, utterly arrogant and ridiculous. In the end, what became of her? She was executed by my father, deemed a madwoman. Then why has Mother, also a traveler from another world, lived here safely for over a decade? Because Mother followed this world's rules, striving to adapt to its ways of survival and adjusting to life here. rather than arrogantly dreaming of changing it. Moreover, only the two of us know the truth about Mother's journey from another realm. Father's gaze held approval. What is your name? This humble maiden is Lu Xianru. At the mention of Lu Xianru, my mother and brothers all turned to look at me, their eyes filled with worry. I smiled and gestured to them that I was fine. So you are Lu Xianru? His Majesty's gaze darkened as he asked coldly. What reward do you desire? Lu Xianru replied. I humbly request His Majesty grant me the title of Imperial Consort and General Xiang. After speaking, Lu Xianru cast a glance my way. I nodded to her, signaling her to continue. I was eager to see how she would persuade Father to grant their wish. Father Emperor coldly declared, nothing else. Lu Xianru remained steadfast. I implore your Majesty to marry this humble maiden and General Xiang. Father Emperor's anger boiled over. I said nothing else. After a moment, his tone softened. Or if you are so set on marrying, among all these young men of talent present, choose whichever you wish. Whomever you select, I shall grant you a royal marriage. Lu Xianru appeared profoundly wronged, tears streaming down her cheeks like pearls from a broken string. Her voice was wretchedly sorrowful. This humble maiden will marry none but General Xiang in this lifetime. The moment I saw Lu Xianru's affected manner, I knew she had begun her performance. I had thought she possessed some clever scheme, but it turned out she merely sought to exploit her status as a woman to stage a tragic love story, hoping to stir the crowd's sympathy and use their pressure to force Father Emperor into compromise. To dare put on such a show right under my father's nose, foolish. Utterly foolish. Beyond foolish. Her acting was so clumsy I couldn't bear to watch. I rose and knelt. Father, since General Xiang and Miss Lu truly love each other, your son cannot bear to separate them. I beg you to dissolve my betrothal to General Xiang. All eyes turned to me, some approving, some pitying, some regretful. Many who hadn't seen me in ages noticed my gauntness and whispered to those beside them. Why has the princess grown so thin? What else could it be? It's all because of Xiang Chang'an. The princess is truly pitiful. After waiting so long, she's met with betrayal. Who could disagree? A murmur of sympathy rippled through the crowd. Father Emperor spoke sternly, You err. This is no time for childish whims. Father, I am not being childish. Father Emperor studied me for a long moment, seeing the unwavering resolve in my eyes. He sighed and asked again, You err. Are you certain? I nodded. I am certain, Father. But I have one condition. What condition? I clutched my chest. My expression pained. My eyes filled with desolation. Your Majesty, I have cherished General Xiang since I was 10. 6 years have passed since then. Had the Xiongnu not invaded our borders, General Xiang and I would have been married long ago. But now, there is no longer a place for me in General Xiang's heart. I know that forcing something that isn't meant to be will only bring bitterness. I do not wish to burden him. Rather than marry General Xiang and make him resent me, I'd rather let go and grant him his happiness with Miss Lu. It's a way of bringing joy to others. I only wish to preserve this last shred of dignity. I'm willing to call off the engagement for their sake. But I paused, then looked up at Lu Xianru. Speaking slowly and deliberately, Miss Lu, you may only ever be General Xiang's concubine in this lifetime. With that, I lowered my head and began to sob softly. When I looked up again, tears I'd been holding back for half a day rolled down my cheeks in large drops. I must have looked truly pitiful, for both Xiang Chang'an and Wei Yanxi, standing not far away, gazed at me with such heartfelt sorrow. It was just acting. After all, I was better at it than Lu Xianru. Besides, didn't she want to marry Xiang Chang'an? I would grant her wish, but how I granted it was entirely my business. Xiang Chang'an, knowing he owed me a debt, agreed without hesitation. And no one would care about the wishes of Liu Xianru, a woman without power or influence, whose origins were unclear. The emperor was also pleased with my decision. I approve, he declared. I turned to look at Liu Xianru. She sat there pale and limp, her eyes staring at me in disbelief. Seems it wasn't quite what she imagined. But that's exactly what I wanted. She humiliated me. And now she expects me to grant them my blessings so easily? How laughable. I'm no bodhisattva. Nor do I possess that great compassion of a bodhisattva. Throughout the entire banquet, I remained in an exceptionally good mood. My only regret was not exchanging a single word with Wei Yanxi all day. I had no choice but to send someone to deliver the prepared wound medicine to him. On my way back to the imperial quarters, I encountered Liu Xianru, her fury boiling over. She charged toward me in 3 strides. Tower sprang forward, blocking my path. She shoved Liu Xianru aside. You insolent woman. Keep your distance. Blocked by Tower. Liu Xianru raged from a distance. Why did you do this? I smiled. You should thank me. Without my help, you wouldn't even be Xiang Chang's concubine. If Father Emperor had his way, they'd never be together in this lifetime. Liu Xianru bellowed, you're lying. My tone remained calm. Whether I speak truth or lies, you need only ask Xiang Chang'an himself. Ask him if he dares defy the emperor, even if he had 100 times the courage. I doubt he would dare. Liu Xianru sneered coldly. I know you're just jealous and seeking revenge. So what if you're a princess? He still dumped you for me. He promised me I'd be the only woman in his life. With just one word from me, he'll definitely make me his legitimate wife. Jealous? Revenge? Did she think Xiang Chang'an was some prized catch? He's nothing but trash. What's there to envy? Besides, he made me countless promises, yet still left me in the end. What are his vows worth? I couldn't care less. This princess awaits your good news. My composure seemed too calm. Liu Xianru frowned. Xiang Chang'an is being snatched away by me. And you don't care at all? I chuckled softly. I don't care. Finally, Liu Xianru, her face turning pale with fury, spat. Just you wait. Before storming off, Tower glared at Liu Xianru's retreating figure and fumed. What an ill-mannered, insolent wench. I smiled. Enough. Don't fret. It's not worth ruining your health over someone like her. But when I see her haughty, arrogant demeanor, I just get so angry. Tower looked at me. Words caught in her throat. Just say it. How could the princess tolerate such insolence? I replied calmly. I won't kill her. I just want her to see reality clearly. She wanted to make me her defeated foe? Then I'll show her exactly what it means. The victor reigns supreme. The vanquished becomes the outcast. The next day, while sipping chicken soup at the Wei residence, I heard news of Liu Xianru causing a scene at the general's mansion out of discontent. Xiang Chang'an, unable to endure her relentless pestering, had run away from home. The entire general's household mobilized to search for him. The commotion so great it even alarmed the emperor. Xiang Chang was finally found at the Yihong Pavilion on South Street, drunk beyond consciousness, clutching a naked beauty in his arms. Only after Xiang Chang sobered up did the emperor learn the full story. After returning from that evening banquet, Liu Xianru expressed extreme dissatisfaction with the idea of becoming a concubine. She demanded Xiang Chang'an go to his father, insisting she must be his legitimate wife. Xiang Chang'an knew this was impossible. He tried to soothe Liu Xianru with soft words, saying that simply being together was already a rare blessing. He pleaded with her to stop causing a scene and making a spectacle of themselves. But Liu Xianru refused to relent. She threw herself on the floor, slapped Xiang Chang'an, and screamed that he was incompetent and a good-for-nothing. demanding he get lost. Xiang Chang'an was a man who thrived on competition, always striving to outshine others. Since his betrothal to me, he had been elevated to the heavens. Now, not only had Lu Xiangru struck him, but she had also branded him incompetent and a good-for-nothing. Had she been a man, Xiang Chang'an would likely have killed her several times over. Yet she was a woman, one he had personally sought out. Pitiful. Truly pitiful. But this was entirely his own doing. He had no one else to blame. Somehow, word of this incident spread, and the entire Dong'an district had a good laugh at the general's mansion's expense. Xiang Chang'an was so enraged he coughed up blood and lay unconscious for several days. I thought Lu Xiangru would finally settle down. After all, if Xiang Chang'an truly died from the shock, she'd become a widow. But to my surprise, she continued her mischief unabated. On the emperor's birthday, the palace bustled with activity. Given my notorious reputation for arrogance and tyranny, the ministers merely bowed to me with their families before hastily departing. But Lu Xiangru was fearless. Not only did she crowd close to me, she even hooked her arm through mine as if we were old acquaintances. She boasted about how deeply in love she and Xiang Chang'an were. Though I enjoy plays, this particular performance held no interest for me. Finding her chatter irritating, I abruptly shook her off. Instantly, Lu Xiangru fell to the ground, clutching her stomach and wailing loudly. I froze. Surprised, I hadn't used much force. Xiang Chang'an rushed over, scooped Lu Xiangru up, and glared at me with fury. Who'd have thought the princess could be so vicious? Sparing not even an unborn child? Only then did I realize Lu Xiangru was pregnant. Whispers rippled through the crowd, though I couldn't make out the words. I knew they were calling me cruel. I let out a cold laugh. Lu Xiangru was truly calculating and ruthless, sacrificing her own child to frame me. They say even a tiger won't eat its young. But she was worse than a beast. When I reached the side chamber, father and mother were already there. Lu Xiangru clung to Xiang Chang's embrace, weeping as she accused me relentlessly. She claimed I had caused her to lose her child out of revenge, that I was truly heartless. She begged father to seek justice for her unborn child. Father's face darkened. If it truly was Yuer's doing, he said, I shall see justice served. Seeing father's resolute tone, mother said, Your Majesty, I believe Yuer. She would never do such a thing. Truthfully, I felt a twinge of sadness that Lu Xiangru had lost her child. But it was her own fault for being born to such a ruthless and foolish mother. I stepped inside and bowed to father and mother. Father. Mother. I glanced at Lu Xiangru, then turned to Xiang Chang and said, May this princess ask General Xiang a question? Xiang Chang nodded. Who knew about Lady Lu's pregnancy? Everyone in the general's residence knew. Was there anyone else? Xiang Chang thought for a moment. No one else. I turned to ask my father and mother, Did you know about Lady Lu's pregnancy? Father and mother shook their heads. I then asked the imperial physician who had taken Lu Xiangru's pulse, Did Physician Zhang know? Physician Zhang shook his head. I questioned several maidservants in succession. They all shook their heads in terror. I chuckled softly. Then how did I come to know of Lady Lu's pregnancy? Could it be that General Xiang secretly sent word to me? Xiang Chang'an froze. This. I shrugged. Does General Xiang know what really happened? Suddenly, Lu Xiangru erupted in fury, even if the princess didn't know I was pregnant. I was indeed pushed down by her. I hadn't realized Lu Xiangru possessed such shameless audacity. It seemed she wouldn't rest until she pinned this crime on me. But just as I was about to speak, Wei Yanqi entered. He declared, Your servant swears on his life that this incident has nothing to do with the princess. Lady Lu fell on her own, and I was not the only witness. Hearing Wei Yanqi's words, Lu Xiangru's face turned even paler. Her lips trembled for a long moment. Yet no words came out. Everyone present now understood the truth. The Empress Dowager glared at Lu Xiangru with dismay. The Emperor, enraged, demanded punishment for her. Xiang Cheng's face was deathly pale as he clenched his fists, glaring viciously at Lu Xiangru, showing no inclination to plead for her mercy. In the end, I intervened to stop father. I imagine Lu Xiangru must be suffering terribly now. Sacrificing her own child couldn't bring me down. If she were to die so easily, it would be too easy for her. She deserves to live in endless agony. Stepping out of the side chamber, I caught up with Wei Yanxi, who had left ahead of me. When we were alone, I asked him, "Why did you lie, Deputy Commander Wei?" Wei Yanxi looked flustered, his eyes darting away. "I did not lie." I chuckled softly. "Are you not afraid His Majesty will punish you for deceiving the throne?" Truthfully, I knew the Emperor had already seen through Wei Yanxi's lie. But he also knew I would never stoop to such a thing. So he went along with Wei Yanxi's words to make his decision. Lu Xiangru didn't refute it. She couldn't be certain if anyone had actually seen it, which is why she fell into Wei Yanxi's trap. Wei Yanxi shook his head. "I'm not afraid." I asked him, "Why help me?" He glanced at me, then shook his head again without saying anything. I didn't press him. After thanking him, I turned and left. Truthfully, even without Wei Yanxi, I could protect myself. At the time, Lu Xiangru was accompanied by her maid. Moreover, Tower and that maid were right behind Lu Xiangru and me. If I had deliberately pushed Lu Xiangru, Tower wouldn't have caught her simply because she disliked her. She also wouldn't have known Lu Xiangru was pregnant. But since Xiang Cheng had already announced it, everyone in the general's residence knew about Lu Xiangru's pregnancy. So why didn't her maid, who knew the danger, catch Lu Xiangru? Even if blame must be assigned, it certainly doesn't rest on my shoulders. Lu Xiangru was truly foolish, losing both her position and her dignity. But I remain puzzled. Why did Wei Yanxi risk his life to save me? The June Temple blessing, Mother had recently caught a cold that wouldn't abate. So the duty of praying for blessings fell solely to me. Previously, armed guards always escorted me. But this time both Xiang Chanan and Wei Yanxi sought the Emperor's permission. In the end, I chose Wei Yanxi. Regardless of Xiang Chanan's motives, whether guilt or an attempt to curry favor, I reject them all. As we departed, Xiang Chanan blocked my carriage and asked, "Why not let the servant accompany you?" I smiled faintly. "Because I do not trust you." Just as he did not trust me, I did not trust him. Xiang Chanan froze, then looked utterly defeated. "Does this servant truly cause the princess such unease?" Without hesitation, I replied, "Yes." Xiang Chanan opened his mouth, momentarily speechless. I lowered the carriage curtain and called out, "Qi Chen." The journey had been smooth until, on our way back from praying for blessings, we encountered assassins. They outnumbered us. Their attacks fierce and their strikes vicious, clearly targeting me alone. Wei Yanxi fought desperately to protect me. But outnumbered, he soon found himself at a disadvantage. He had no choice but to flee frantically with me. We were driven to a cliff's edge. I peered down, bottomless, dark and ominous, like a gaping maw. My legs went weak with fear. Before I could recover, arrows rained down on Wei Yanxi and me. I watched helplessly as they closed in. Just when I thought certain death was upon us, Wei Yanxi flashed before me. With fluid grace, he swept his sword in a flourish, sending the arrows tumbling to the ground. Without turning back, he murmured firmly, "Your Highness, fear not. Even if it costs me my life, I shall protect you." Wei Yanxi's resolute voice echoed like temple bells, ringing repeatedly in my heart until it burned. Watching his broad back, my own heart pounded wildly. As Wei Yanxi engaged his assailants, A cloaked figure suddenly loosed an arrow at him. Watching the arrow close in, my mind went blank. Then excruciating pain erupted in my back. Wei Yanqi stared at me in disbelief, his eyes wide. Holding my body, he trembled uncontrollably. He likely hadn't expected me to save him, nor had I. Yet I did it anyway. A sharp agony erupted behind me. I sucked in a sharp breath, coughing until I gasped for air. Wei Yanqi watched me helplessly. The pain was excruciating. Every cough tore at my insides, and I felt certain I was dying. Seeing Wei Yanqi's self-blaming expression, I couldn't bear it. I forced a smile to comfort him. I don't feel any pain. Princess, I will never let you die. Wei Yanqi's voice was hoarse and trembling. As the enemy closed in, he held me and leaped off the cliff. The roaring wind filled my ears, piercing them with pain. My cheeks stung from the harsh wind, and it was cold, so cold, unbearably cold. After an unknown span of time, I faintly heard someone calling my name. Immediately, something cold pressed against my lips. Icy liquid poured into my mouth, soothing my parched, aching throat. I greedily drank in the coolness, biting and chewing at whatever it was, seeking whatever felt good. When I woke again, I was in a cave. Wei Yanqi sat not far from me, wearing only an undershirt. Before him crackled a fire, its flames dancing and popping. He held a wooden stick in his hand, with a white garment, likely an undershirt, skewered upon it. His expression was strange, his eyes darting away, avoiding mine. I wondered what guilty secret he was hiding. The next moment, something clicked. He was wearing an undershirt, right? Then whose undershirt was on that stick? I looked down. I was wearing Wei Yanqi's outer garment, its collar wide open. The red undershirt beneath was blindingly bright. I quickly pulled the fabric together, my cheeks burning with shame at the thought of him having seen me naked. Only after the heat faded from my face did I dare look up at Wei Yanqi again. That's when I noticed the scar on the left corner of his mouth. What happened to your mouth? Wei Yanqi, who was drying clothes by the fire, jerked violently. The garment dangling from the stick nearly fell into the flames. Wei Yanqi ignored my question, but his ears flushed crimson, the color spreading all the way down to his neck. After a long moment, he touched the clothes on the stick. They seemed dry. He stood up, walked over, and handed them to me. Then, hesitating, he took them back and asked, "Can you put them on yourself, princess?" I thought, what's so hard about that? And nodded. He placed the clothes beside me and left. But I'd clearly overestimated myself. Getting up was difficult enough, let alone dressing. The slightest movement tugged at the wound on my back, sending a wave of pain through me that broke out in a cold sweat. After about 15 minutes, Wei Yanqi returned, seeing the clothes still neatly placed beside me. He asked, "Why haven't you put them on, princess?" I looked troubled. "The wound hurts too much. I can't manage it." Wei Yanqi approached and carefully helped me sit up. Closing his eyes, he slipped off my outer robe. As he dressed me in the inner garment, his fingertips brushed my bare arm. We both froze, stiff and silent, neither daring to move. After a long moment, he finished dressing me in the inner robe and then fumbled to retrieve my outer garment, helping me into it. By the time he finished, his face was flushed crimson. Truthfully, mine wasn't much better. After changing me, Wei Yanqi stood up and turned to leave. I grabbed his sleeve, a move that nearly killed me. I felt my wound tear open again. The pain was excruciating. Wei Yanqi looked at me in confusion. "What's wrong, princess?" I didn't know why I'd grabbed him. By the time I realized it, it was already done. After a moment, I said. Thank you. Wei Yanqi froze. Princess. There's no need for thanks. This is my duty as a subject. I nodded and released his sleeve. But Wei Yanqi was standing sideways while I was seated. As I looked away, my eyes caught something they shouldn't have. He caught my gaze, flushed, covered himself, and dashed out. He didn't return for nearly an hour. After that incident, everything we did felt awkward, and awkwardness tinged with a hint of intimacy. Even brief eye contact seemed to crackle with sparks. I was fine, but Wei Yanqi wasn't. He felt awkward about everything, even walking with his hands and feet in sync. Fortunately, not long after, my father's secret guards found their way here. Among them Xiang Chang'an, his face etched with worry. Xiang Chang'an knelt with a thud. Your Highness, I arrived too late to protect you. I beg your forgiveness. I ignored Xiang Chang'an and turned to the guard beside me. Has Tower been found? She has. How is she? She's startled, but otherwise unharmed. Hearing Tower was safe, I exhaled deeply. The carriage was parked quite a distance away. Halfway there, my head began to spin. Deputy General Wei. I murmured weakly. I feel dizzy. Xiang Chang'an hurried over, turning to kneel on one knee before me. I lowered my gaze to his back and said softly, General Xiang, rise. I need not be attended to. I never needed it before, and I certainly don't need it now. Xiang Chang'an froze in place. After a moment, he rose and stood silently to the side, head bowed. Seeing this, Wei Yanqi muttered, My apologies, then swept me into his arms and headed toward the carriage. I never knew the usually cool and detached Wei Yanqi could blush so easily, his ears turning crimson time and again in my presence. I chuckled and shook my head. Yet when I turned around, my gaze met Xiang Chang'an's behind me. His fists were clenched, his eyes brimming with sorrow. A cold laugh rose in my heart. Who was he putting on this act for now? Since Wei Yanqi had been injured for my sake, I invited him to join me in the carriage. Once inside, drowsiness washed over me, urging sleep. Yet that burning gaze kept me restless. Wei Yanqi hadn't expected me to suddenly open my eyes. Unable to look away in time, our gazes met. In his startled eyes, I saw both admiration and conflict. I asked him, Deputy General Wei, do you have feelings for this princess? Wei Yanqi stiffened, about to speak, but I cut him off. This princess detests deception. Think carefully before answering. After a moment's hesitation, he murmured softly, Yes. His ears flushed crimson once more. I smiled and said, Then I'll give you a chance to love me. Truthfully, while drinking chicken soup at the Wei residence, I'd already noticed Wei Yanqi's unusual behavior. He kept stealing glances at me, but fearing I might be mistaken, I pretended not to notice. And when Lu Xiangru framed me, he risked his life to help me, that time too. I suspected he might like me. But just now, I confirmed it. He does like me. Truthfully, after spending time with him, I realized I rather liked Wei Yanqi myself. So I was willing to give him this chance. I refused to believe every single one of them would betray me. Wei Yanqi stared at me in shock. After a long moment, he exclaimed with delight, Princess, do you truly mean this? I chuckled. When have I ever gone back on my word? Wei Yanqi knelt before me with a thud, gripping my hand excitedly. This servant will prove himself worthy and never disappoint your highness. I gently lifted his chin with my finger, intending to tease him, but noticed the wound at his mouth. What happened to your lip? Wei Yanqi flushed crimson. The princess bit me. This left me utterly dumbfounded. Back at the palace, Mother clung to me, weeping incessantly. My brothers gathered around my bed, hearts heavy with worry. Father sat nearby, his expression profoundly somber, not uttering a word. Those who knew him well understood this was the prelude to his wrath. No secret stays hidden forever. Despite Liu Xiangro's meticulous planning, Father uncovered that she orchestrated the entire assassination attempt against me. Recalling how those assassins looked so determined to kill me, I shuddered with lingering fear. If not for Wei Yinqi risking his life to protect me, I would have been dead long ago. How much hatred could Liu Xiangru possibly harbor toward me? But speaking of hatred, shouldn't I be the one hating her? After all, she was the one who stole my betrothed. Even her own child met its end by her hand. It had nothing to do with me. I simply couldn't fathom why she was so determined to make my life miserable. They say a woman's heart is as deep as the sea, and that saying rings true. Father issued an edict. Liu Xiangru was to be imprisoned in the heavenly dungeon and executed at a later date. Truthfully, Father could have executed her immediately. But since this incident endangered my life, he chose to make an example of her. Xiang Chang remained entirely unaware of the matter from start to finish and thus avoided involvement. Yet, fueled by suspicion, Father still stripped him of his military authority. They say emperors are inherently suspicious. And my father is no exception, especially towards Xiang Chang, who repeatedly crossed his boundaries and challenged his authority through Liu Xiangru. He spared Liu Xiangru initially because Xiang Chang held military power, and my father still feared him. Now that Liu Xiangru has set her sights on me, my father is truly enraged. I thought learning of Liu Xiangro's impending execution would devastate Xiang Chang'an, that he'd risk his life to plead for her. But he didn't. Even facing death, he never once looked at her. Before her execution, I went to see her, knowing her death was inevitable. Liu Xiangru grew strangely calm in my presence. She said, "Do you remember what I told you when we first met? What does it matter if you're a princess? In the end, you'll still be defeated by me." Liu Xiangru chuckled softly. "Your memory is truly sharp, princess." "It's not that my memory is sharp," I replied. "It's that your words were so arrogant, I couldn't forget them even if I wanted to. Truth be told, I came here through time travel." I nodded. "I know." Liu Xiangro's eyes widened suddenly. She stared at me intently, her gaze filled with inquiry. "You know?" I replied. "Time travel is a common occurrence here. After seeing it enough, it ceases to be strange." Liu Xiangro's expression shifted to one of sudden understanding. "No wonder. If it weren't for them, I would have defeated you." I shook my head. "You're mistaken. Even without them, you could never defeat me. Truthfully, I should thank my mother. If not for her, I wouldn't have known Liu Xiangru had traveled through time. But regardless of whether I knew her origins, she could never defeat me." She looked puzzled. "Why?" I replied slowly. "Because I am a princess. I am Dong'an's most revered princess. An untouchable boundary for my father and mother. As long as I remain a princess, she can never defeat me. Her current fate is the clearest proof." Liu Xiangru also told me this was her second time crossing over to this world. Last time, she lost too, even more miserably than now. When she opened her eyes again, she found herself back here, in her previous life. "I loved Xiang Chang'an with a passion that nearly killed me. I nearly died for him." She believed snatching Xiang Chang'an from me would guarantee victory. So she disguised herself as a man, secretly infiltrated the army, and schemed relentlessly to make Xiang Chang'an fall for her. Little did she expect my utter detachment. I let go without hesitation, leaving her utterly unprepared. Later, when she had a child, she briefly considered settling into a quiet life. Yet every time she saw me, memories of the past life resurfaced, and her heart burned with resentment. That's why she used the child to frame me. What she didn't anticipate was how fragile the child was. It was gone in an instant. But even after the child was lost, I remained unharmed, not a hair out of place. Mentioning the child, Lu Xiangru finally showed a rare glimpse of vulnerability, tears welling in her eyes. Her attempt to assassinate me came only after I'd driven her to the brink. She believed that only by eliminating me could she win. She had anticipated this day. Yet despite sacrificing everything, she still couldn't defeat me. She said she never wanted to see me again. I asked her, is winning or losing really that important? She answered without hesitation, yes. Then if you could do it all over again, would you still want to defeat me? She didn't speak, but her eyes told me that if given the chance, she would walk the same path again. I didn't think her actions were brave, I thought they were foolish. On the day of Lu Xiangru's execution, she showed no tears or commotion. I asked her if she wasn't afraid. She said, "What good would fear do? I'm still going to die." Hearing this, I laughed. At that moment, she was clear-headed, but it was too late. The blade rose and fell, ending Lu Xiangru's brief journey through time. Months later, no one in Dongnan remembered the woman named Lu Xiangru. I remained Dongnan's most honored princess. On Qixi Festival, I pleaded with Father Emperor for a long time before he finally allowed me to leave the palace. Past Qixi festivals had always felt hollow to me, for Xiang Chang was never by my side. I could only watch others express their love openly. But this year's Qixi would not be spent alone. I observed couples nestled together, oblivious to those around them. Only on this day did they dare to express their affection so freely. Suddenly, I found myself longing to meet Wei Yanqi. Yet when I turned, our eyes met. Wei Yanqi's features were like a painted portrait, his nose as straight as a beam, his lips as red as painted vermilion. He curved his lips into a smile for me. And in that moment, I froze. His white robes billowed around him, making him seem like an immortal stepping out of a scroll. So breathtakingly beautiful it was dizzying. Snapping back to reality, I walked over to him and said with a smile, "You came." Wei Yanqi's eyes were filled with affection. "MHM." Neither of us looked away, the air thick with unspoken tension. Just as Wei Yanqi and I were about to kiss, someone suddenly burst forward, falling to his knees at my feet with a thud. I stared in surprise. Wasn't this Xiang Chang'an? I asked him. "What on earth is this?" Xiang Chang'an placed his hands on my shoes, his posture submissive, his eyes red as he pleaded, "Yuer, I beg you, show me some kindness." I smiled and told him, "Get lost." His face drained of color as he trembled, asking, "Did you ever love me at all?" Hearing that, I genuinely wanted to laugh. It was as if I were the one who had wronged him. But none of it mattered anymore. I no longer loved him. I said, "No." Ever since the day he humiliated me for Lu Xiangru, I erased those 6 years from my mind. Without those 6 years, I didn't love him. So saying I don't love him is the truth. Xiang Chang'an pulled a shattered jade pendant from his robe. I recognized it, my first gift to him. He'd later claimed it was lost. I took the jade pendant from Xiang Chang'an's hand. "You said it was lost." "It wasn't lost. It was stolen." "Stolen?" I asked, puzzled. Xiang Chang'an pointed angrily at Wei Yanqi beside me. "He stole it." The pendant shattered when I wrestled it from him. "Since it's broken," I said, "it holds no meaning. Throw it away." I flung the jade pendant into the lake. Xiang Chang'an stared at the lake's surface for a long while. He knew I wouldn't turn back. Once more, he knelt at my feet, his voice nearly breaking. "If I could start over, I'd never let you go." I smiled. There are no ifs in this world. If there were, this princess would wish she'd never met you. Mother said, a dog can't change its habit of eating shit. Belated affection is cheaper than grass. And a good horse never grazes where it has already eaten. Xiang Chang'an may be a dog, but I am no horse. I do not graze where I have already fed. My conversation with Xiang Chang'an had lasted a while, and Wei Yanxi grew visibly jealous. His tone was sullen as he asked, "Are you done?" I paused, then replied, "Yes." Though jealous, Wei Yanxi did not abandon me. Instead, he took my hand. When he turned back to me, his eyes brimmed with love. He told me, I didn't steal the jade pendant. Xiang Chang'an lost it. And I found it. I should have returned it. But I couldn't bear to part with it. I thought I could keep this secret forever. Then he suddenly came to my residence, saw the pendant in my hand, and we struggled over it. It slipped from our grasp and shattered on the floor. So that's why he beat you? Wei Yanxi nodded. Yes. But I don't blame him. After all, it was my fault the jade broke. I knew Wei Yanxi had fought with Xiang Chang'an because he couldn't bear to part with it. Breaking the jade wasn't his intention. But seeing him blame himself so deeply pained me. So later, I gave Wei Yanxi a whole stack of jade pendants, telling him, if you break them all, I'll give you more. A month later, adorned in phoenix crown and bridal robes, I married Wei Yanxi amidst a 10-mile procession of red wedding decorations. By the time Wei Yanxi came to lift my veil, I was so famished I felt lightheaded. Weakly, I murmured, Wei Yanxi, I want chicken soup. All right. I'll arrange it immediately. As Wei Yanxi started to leave, I grabbed his sleeve. Just send the maids to prepare it. Wei Yanxi looked troubled. I asked, what's wrong? He stammered, unable to speak. Only after my threats and bribes did he finally confess. All the chicken soup I'd been drinking these past months was actually cooked by Wei Yanxi. He told me that day my chicken soup wasn't as good as his family's cooks, just to lure me to his mansion. Later, when I asked him for the recipe, it was exactly what he expected. So he and the cook put on a show for me. I said, that day, before I could even finish speaking, the cook from the Wei mansion seemed to have the power of foresight, cutting me off before I could say anything. Moreover, Wei Yanxi had harbored feelings for me for a long time. It began when I was 11, rescuing Tower from bullies. He realized I wasn't like the arrogant princess described in rumors. But back then, my heart belonged entirely to Chang'an. He could only bury his true feelings, pretending indifference to avoid false hope. To discover Wei Yanxi had long harbored plans for me, I was overjoyed, my heart sweet as if coated in honey. After drinking the chicken soup and entering the bridal chamber, I lay panting on Wei Yanxi's chest and asked him, will you betray me someday? Like you did, Chang'an. Though I'm easygoing, enduring that once was enough. I never want to go through it again. Wei Yanxi replied, the day I betray you will be the day I die. I smiled. Then your life belongs to me. Wei Yanxi rolled over, his lips brushing mine. Then my body belongs to you too. That's how it goes, the wrong person leaves, and the right one comes for you. I never imagined growing old alone, nor did I believe both men would betray me. Gazing at Wei Yanxi's peaceful sleeping face, I felt utterly content. The end.